All right, welcome everyone to the Plastics Research in Action 4th year update. My name is Lorraine Royer. I'm the General Manager of Government, Stakeholder and Indigenous Relations with Interpipeline. I have a number of my colleagues here, and you guys should feel free to, I was going to say accost them, but if you could just feel free to approach them because they all have some part to play in this project as well. We have James and Bilal, I'm calling you all out. And Jennifer, put their hands up. Veronique, Joanne, Bilal, I missed where you went to. And in various ways, they've been helpful to the project because we're really excited and proud of this Plastics Research in Action initiative at Interpipeline. We'd like to thank everyone who has joined us here today at NAIT's Productivity and Innovation Center. It's beautiful, and we know it's productive. And as well as there are many people who are joining us virtually today and streaming us live right from far and wide. So welcome to everyone online as well. Before we begin, we would like to take a moment to recognize that we are gathered here in person together on NAIT's campus, which is located on the ancestral territories of the Treaty 6 peoples. We would like to thank the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory for centuries. The traditional name of this place is Amiskwachee Waskegun, which we also call the City of Edmonton. As our businesses and the attendees on this call span ancestral Indigenous lands across North America, we also acknowledge and respectfully recognize the caretakers of other treaty lands, in addition to all Métis regions. We publicly commit to being good stewards of this land while we are here. And we make this acknowledgement because it's important for us to understand the long-standing history that has brought us to this land and this place, and to learn our place within that history and reconcile for future generations. In a moment, I will introduce you to your host for this event, Patrick. I just wanted to open and emphasize how important and meaningful this partnership is to Interpipeline. 4 years ago, we announced Plastics Research in Action to develop solutions to get and keep plastic waste out of the environment. We are contributing $10 million over 10 years to applied research with NAIT as a part of a commitment that Interpipeline made to the Federal Strategic Innovation Fund when we were first developing our Heartland Petrochemicals Complex just east of the city here. We take great pride in our Heartland Polymers business, which is North America's first integrated propane to polypropylene complex right here in the heartland of Alberta. Being a safe, responsible operator and producer of quality plastic is something that Heartland Polymers is very proud of. We consider it important to contribute to solutions on plastic waste while keeping this vital product a part of our economy and part of our solutions to a wide range of human needs. So now let me introduce Patrick. We all met Patrick as the first summer student hired to the PRIA project in the summer of 2020. He was a level 1 researcher, and we were all captivated from the start with his passion for the project. His talent quickly moved him into a more senior research position. Patrick's love for the outdoors defines his approach. This young person from St. Albert spent his youth exploring the river valleys and the pathways and, well, has never really stopped. I'm sure you will feel that enthusiasm from him as he takes you through the program's projects. We are so lucky to have nabbed him as a student, to have the other students that are participating in this program have brought such value, and we're so thrilled that he has stayed on and grown into his senior position with our project. Now, Patrick.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Lorraine, for the kind introduction, as always. And good afternoon, and thank you for everyone joining us today, whether you are participating virtually or here in person. As Lorraine had graciously hyped me up, my name is Patrick McGlashan, a research technician and assistant within the Clean Technologies team here at NAIT. Coming into year 5 as an employee within this wonderful building we call the Productivity and Innovation Center, where we meet today. Speaking of my time here, I joined PRIA back in the quote-unquote early days where I got to experience the kickoff of all the projects in the portfolio and be a part of developing our groups into a unified team. As I watched my skills develop and the relationship between Heartland Polymers and NAIT grow from a front row seat, I recognized the shifting and molding into what the relationship is today. Dare I say that in year 4, PRIA harnesses the essence of what applied research really is, working together with industry to enable solutions and progress every single day. PRIA has offered opportunities to inspire innovation and ignite curiosity in the realm of plastic science. It goes without saying, project progress along this event today couldn't have come alive without the hard work of everyone behind the scenes. This ranges from management to steering committees to advisory boards, from student researchers to senior technicians, from program chairs to research assistants and senior technicians and associates all in between, and partners of all contribution. Before we deep dive into the nitty-gritty, I wish to take a moment and offer a brief round of applause from everyone here in the room, recognizing adversity overcome and all the hard work to reach the point we share today. All right. Shifting gears into why we are gathered here today, PRIA is excited to share all the interesting work that has taken place over this past year. We'll take the time to appreciate our learnings in our metaphorical rearview mirror and continue to drive ahead, adapting and sharing PRIA's long-term goal of both removing and keeping plastics out of our environment whilst ensuring its place in our economy. Everyone attending today is familiar with the fact that making a transition into a circular economy is no easy feat. However, PRIA takes initiative in applied research by identifying opportunities with tangible solutions for society to reuse and recycle plastic waste, with visions of a cleaner environment and a thriving plastic circular economy. Today, after I'm finished delivering my beautiful voice, you will hear about PRIA from the NAIT perspective, delivered by Mr. Peter Leclerc, VP of Academic at NAIT. We will then jump into the science and updates on 4 initiatives, along with the details on a new upcoming project. At the top, you will hear from applied chemist, Mr. Jeremiah Brixa, who is also my supervisor, so no pressure, Jeremiah, regarding one of PRIA's main initiatives focused on analysis of microplastics in fresh water, specifically the North Saskatchewan River. Next, we will introduce Dr. Toya Oyedin, NAIT's senior project manager, seeking ways to utilize difficult-to-recycle plastics in other products, beginning with asphalt and branching outward. Third, industrial surface chemist, Ms. Kelsey Deutsch, will walk us through the development of polypropylene flooring from recycled materials. Kelsey will also speak on the 4th initiative, utilizing post-consumer plastics for concrete framework applications. Finally, we will hear from Clean Technologies Chair, Dr. Paulo Musone, about a new project within the portfolio, Design for Circularity Project. We will also get a bonus hearing from the next latest and greatest, this year's co-op student under the microplastics team that I had the pleasure in working with personally, Danielle Charrois, who will share her experience in PRIA this past year. Throughout these presentations, it's important to note that transparency is vital. This work cannot happen behind closed doors. Our governments, academic institutions, industrial and community neighbors, and partners are all heavily engaged, ensuring we all share in the findings and successes, aiming to impact not just Alberta, but the world as we know it. Before we begin into our formal presentations, I would like to draw your attention to our forward-looking statement written in the appropriately 2-size font. To summarize, please be aware that the information presented today may contain forward-looking information and assumptions. That, although considered reasonable by PRIA and partners at this time, we still have 6 more years in the tank for this collaboration. Information may later differ from those stated or implied by our comments and updates given today. Undue reliance should not be placed on the information that is to follow. On a bright note, collaboration is the theme of today, through and through. Without PRIA's partners and collaborators, the research we all conduct today could not have come alive. A most heartfelt shout out and thank you to the folks at Dow, Polyco, Green Mantra Technologies, Rewaste, Clark Builders, Strathcona and Sturgeon Counties, McAsphalt, Burnco, Alexander First Nation, and Alexander Asphalt and Concrete from all of us in PRIA. PRIA would also like to acknowledge and thank our co-funding partners at NSERC, Alberta Innovates, and MyTax, who granted the opportunity to leverage grants, expanding the capabilities of PRIA and incorporating student involvement throughout the portfolio. It's awesome to see some of your beautiful shining faces in person here today. All right. I feel like I've had the microphone a little too long. I've been told I can ramble, so I'm sure that there are some other folks here that wouldn't mind sharing a few words with you all. That said, I would like to next introduce and welcome friend of PRIA, NAIT's Vice President Academic, to the stage, Mr. Peter Leclerc.
So thanks and good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. As Patrick mentioned, my name is Peter Leclerc. I'm the Vice President Academic here at NAIT. I did understand I got an Executive Vice President role here thanks to Patrick, so not sure how that happened, but maybe it comes with a pay raise as well, do you think? Thank you, yes. I feel more important than ever. Plastics Research in Action, or PRIA, was initiated in 2019 and has since evolved into a comprehensive and expanding portfolio of projects rooted in innovation. Today, I'm thrilled to be here as both researchers and students join us to share some remarkable developments from this partnership. And I use the term partnership, but it's more than that. It's than just a collaboration. It's a testament to the advancements and solutions that can be accomplished when we work closely with our industry partners and the positive impacts we collectively bring to society and our communities. Through PRIA, NAIT's capabilities and strategic focus in key areas such as microplastics detection, circular economics, and the use of circular and renewable plastics in manufacturing have been significantly elevated. In the coming year, our A wing in what we affectionately call the PIC Center, this building will undergo a significant expansion dedicated to circular economics and plastics research, underscoring our commitment to advancing our goal in reducing plastic waste and microplastics in the environment. And beyond applied research, PRIA permeates into our educational programs as well. Our School of Skilled Trades is actively engaged in post-consumer plastics for building material development, a collaborative effort with ReWaste, a company founded by NAIT alumni and Clark Builders. We're also proud to highlight a project that includes an Indigenous community, showcasing our commitment to inclusivity and community engagement. We're working on developing modified plastic asphalt for paving in collaboration with Green Mantra, Burnco, and Alexander First Nations Paving. The initiatives we are highlighting today stand as powerful examples of our collaboration with PRIA. They are a testament to our dedication to fostering sustainable practices, creating real-world impacts, and building lasting relationships with our partners and communities. I look forward to our future collaborative opportunities as we continue to push the boundaries of innovation and make meaningful contributions to more sustainable and interconnected futures. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Peter. We appreciate your passion. All right. Well, without further ado, the moment we've all been waiting for, minus the cocktail hour, of course, I would like to introduce and welcome Jeremiah Brixa to the podium, my supervisor and mentor, applied chemist with the NAIT Clean Technologies team, to provide this year's updates on PRIA's microplastics monitoring project.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeremiah, and I'm a chemist here at NAIT in Applied Research. Today, I'm going to be giving some updates on the microplastic monitoring project, which was the first project in the PRIA portfolio starting back in 2020. I remember when I first started working on this project, I used to think of plastic waste in the environment as pop bottles and plastic bags littered. But as researchers are getting better at looking, we're finding these microscopic plastic particles everywhere called microplastics. The purpose of the study is to provide an accurate and reliable baseline quantitation of microplastics in the North Saskatchewan River. We've adapted and applied standardized methodology to accurately sample, extract, and analyze microplastics from the river. We have 12 unique sites spanning 110 kilometers in the Edmonton municipal region, starting in Devon all the way to Bruderheim. And in studying these locations over year after year, we can get an idea of microplastic concentrations and how they change over time. This study is in collaboration with Dow Chemical Canada. So I'm going to start off with this slide because I think it embodies one of the core tenets of PREA and the relationship with Heartland Polymers and NAIT. Student involvement is built into all PREA projects because we think it's important to train the next generation of scientists and technologists. This is a picture of the project team this year. Everyone on in this picture, except for me, has either been a student and is now a full-time researcher or was a student this summer on the project. To date, our project alone has over 7,500 hours of student involvement. We call it a talent incubator. All right, so let's get into some field updates. Studying the North Saskatchewan River requires us to employ a very strategic way of sampling the river. Since microplastics are considered a trace contaminant, we need to sample very large volumes of water to make sure we see them. So we've designed a sampling system that allows us to filter 1,500 liters of river water in the field and isolate all the particles to bring them back into the lab for testing. We call this sampling system River Beauty, and you can see it in action here. So this year we continued to collect with a collection of 1,500 liter water samples with our sampling system following the standard method ASTM D8332. The system has been designed in-house by the Center for Sensors and System Integration, and it works really well. It's battery powered, it's portable, and it's plastic free. We can set it up wherever we want along the river. We're out this summer, rain or shine. I don't know if you remember the heavy rain in June, but we were out there during the rainstorms. Nothing really stopped us, but when we found a 20-foot tree floating down the river, we knew it was time to pack up. We also wanted to incorporate a little bit of sustainability into our projects, so we charged our batteries this year on NAIT's microgrid, which is powered by the solar array on the outside of this roof. We pumped hundreds of thousands of liters of water just with solar energy this year. One of my favorite parts about working on this project is getting to work with Interpipeline's Field Initial Response and Support Team, or FIRST. These are the guys tasked with responding to incidents within Alberta, expertly trained in operating aquatic vehicles. We get them to help us take mid-river samples and as well tough-to-reach samples that we can't get just through hiking on the river valley. We know we're in good hands working with Captain Mark Jones, Dan, Trevor, and Mark. We worked together for the last 4 years. As I mentioned before, we work a lot with students on this project, and most of the students on the team, this is their first professional job. So getting experience working with a team like FIRST, it's a really good perspective and gives them an idea of what it's like working with a highly functioning team in a real-world environment. Plus, it's really fun driving around in these boats in the river valley. So moving on to some lab updates, we're continuously batch processing samples that we've collected and sending the extracted product to Dow for analysis. Now that the method development is complete, we process our samples by extracting and isolating microplastics from the river matrix, which is jam-packed with other particles that are not microplastics. The process is long and tedious. It takes about 5 business days to complete just for one batch, and we have to be extra careful not to contaminate our samples. After this process, the Dow team analyzes our samples using state-of-the-art equipment called the Quantum Cascade Laser Direct Chemical Imaging System, or LDIR. This can accurately identify microplastics and then report us back the plastic type, the counts, and as well particle size. Combine this technology with Dow's extremely skilled chemical analysts, and we have a very powerful measurement technique. Last year, we've been working really hard to set up our own microplastic analysis equipment, specifically a micro FTIR and a Raman microscope. We use these, they work on the same principle as the LDIR and allows us to do our own in-house testing. Patrick has been working the last year setting up these instruments to make sure they're accurate and reliable. So this is a graph of total microplastics from the North Saskatchewan River, very similar to the graph I presented last year. The bars represent microplastic concentration per 1,500 liters, which is the volume of sample water we take for each sample. The different colors represent different sites, and along the x-axis, it moves from upstream to downstream Edmonton. So the particle size that we look at is 40 microns to 500 microns. That's the boundary of our analysis. This graph took us almost 30 years to generate, or 30 months to generate. So over the last year, we've increased our data, obtaining data points from all the sites over multiple months. And now years. So the data is getting more and more complex to the point of where this forum doesn't really do it justice to talk about it. It's also important that we handle the data appropriately with statistical analysis. And to do that, we need to process even more samples. So I think there's some cool trends, some that we didn't expect to see and some that we expected but didn't see. But you'll have to stay tuned for more information as we disseminate our results in conferences and scientific manuscripts. So just to wrap up with a quick note about our future, we plan to process samples and keep sending them to Dow, growing our data set and gaining more information about the river. As well, we are going to be providing our own supplementary analysis using our own in-house equipment. We plan to hire our last co-op student to work on the team in 2024 to help us in the lab and execute the last field season in 2024. Finally, we're working on some potential collaborations with other microplastic research teams. We're getting a lot of traction with the work that we're doing here in PRIA across Canada and into America as well. For example, this summer, we had Yukon government's water quality specialist fly down to Edmonton with us and train with us on the river and learn how to sample for microplastics. It's pretty cool to be able to look back on this project and remember back in 2020 and 2021 when we were new to this field and running into a lot of the same problems that other researchers are. It feels good to be able to provide these teams with guidance, and it makes me appreciate the collaboration we have with Heartland Polymers and Dow through PRIA. We couldn't have got to where we are now without each other, and I'm really proud of the work we've done here today. I think it speaks to NAIT's role in this province, collaborating with industry. We're here to help Alberta industry in their unique problems through applied research. So I'm going to pass the mic off to Dr. Toya, and he's going to talk about the asphalt project.
Thank you, Jeremiah. So I'll be giving a brief update about the asphalt project. And the purpose of the project, again, just to refresh us, is to test, to validate, and to demonstrate that the blending of post-consumer plastics in the asphalt for Alberta cold climate works. And we started the project in June of 2021, and we're hoping to end the project next year, October in 2024. 3 phases. We've completed the first phase, which deals with the identification of the suitable candidate, in terms of the types of the sample that we can use, Alberta specific sample. And then phase 2, in terms of ensuring that the testing and the confirmation of the modified asphalt actually works with the Alberta specific product. And then phase 3 is what we're currently doing. So we're monitoring and we're evaluating the laid asphalt to ensure that, yes, it meets the required standard and it stays compared to asphalt without plastics. We have 4 major partners in this, even though we have other collaborators as well. So Green Mantra, when we started, Green Mantra, they are a technology leader that uses advanced chemical recycling technologies to transform waste plastics into value-creating synthetic waxes and polymer additives. Then we have the McAsphalt Industries, and as well as the Strathcona County and Sturgeon County. So for the phase 3, 4 trial sites were constructed with the modified plastic hot mix asphalt surfacing. We have a control section with a conventional hot mix asphalt. We have that at the Heartland Petrochemical Complex. And the following are the 4 trial sites. So number 1, the internal access roads within the Heartland Petrochemical Complex facilities. I'll be showing a map that actually indicated on the map where the sites are. Then we also have a section on Starkey Road in Sturgeon County. We have a section on the westbound lane of the Lakeland Drive in Strathcona County, and I know quite a number of us have driven on that particular road. Then we have 2 sections within the Alexander First Nation in Morrival, and also the data center parking lot at Alexander First Nation. just to note, the HPC and the data center sites, they are completely new construction. The trial section paving was done on the existing paving for the remaining site. The next slide shows the HPC site, and we see the green indicate the plastic mix, where the red indicate the control mix section. So that's asphalt without plastic. Then I have the Stonjon site. We have about 900.9 kilometer of road on the Starkey Road that was constructed with this mix. Also, we have the Strathcona site on westbound of Lakeland Drive, and we have about 850 thereabout, 0.85 kilometer of road. Then we have the Alexander site as the last slide there that shows the two roads that were constructed, as well as the data center, the parking lot. So the progress to date, we retain the service of WSP Canada Incorporated to carry out a multi-year pavement feed performance evaluation of the 4 trial sites. And we specifically chose WSP because they have a technology that will be of interest to partners here, as well as Abata Transportation. Also, we've done a couple of testing. So the planned testing are visual pavement condition survey to be conducted. We have the pavement structural capacity assessment with the falling weight deflectometer FWD test to be we've done, and we're still going to do more. And we have the pavement smoothness evaluation with the Supro Profiler. That will be done next year to cap up the evaluation and the testing. This summary that I'm going to present is just a one-page summary, represent the findings of the pavement assessment carried out with the visual pavement condition survey, as well as the falling weight deflectometer. Okay, so some key summary for us to note. From our testing done so far last year and this year, there are no early pavement failure or extreme severity distress evident on any of the sites. So the sites are still fine, no known extreme severity distress noticed on those roads. We calculate the DMI for the roads, and we find out that they are about very close to 10. The least of them was about 9.8 value. So 10 is the best, and anything lower than 5, 4, then that means it's getting worse. So all the values are very close to 10, which shows that the road actually was able to sustain the traffic on the road and still compare comparatively with any asphalt without plastic in Alberta. Also, the subgrade modular of most sites, they are also within the typical provincial range for sites after 1 year and after 2 years of laying down the site. And lastly, the pavement modular and the effective structural number data indicate homogeneous section for most of the sites. So the essence of that result is that there is no separation. So one of the concerns when we started this project is separation of plastics from the asphalt. But that result shows that, yes, it's still homogeneous section. There is no heterogeneous section noticed in any of the site. So in terms of next step, the monitoring of the pavement performance at each site will continue next year, and we're going to do a field inspection again. The DMI will be calculated based on the field inspection data and will be compared against the 2022 and 2023 DMI data to identify if there is any functional loss of the pavement. And next year, we're going to conduct an IRI test as well as FWD tests will be conducted. And then we're going to wrap up the project and then have our conclusion from the project. So that's kind of the update on the asphalt project. Everything has been good so far. We have 1 more year or less than to go. And by next update, we will have a more informed conclusion from the asphalt project. So at this time, I'm going to introduce Ms. Kelsey Dioch, She's the industrial service chemist to come and speak about 2 project updates. Thank you, Kes.
Awesome. Thank you, Toyu, for the introduction. As Toyu said, my name is Kelsey Deutsch, and I'm an industrial surface chemist here with the Clean Technologies team. And I'm excited to talk about 2 different projects today. The first one, we're going to start off with a little video introducing the project of the development of polypropylene flooring from recycled materials. We're working with Polyco to develop luxury flooring tiles based out of polypropylene that also contain recycled content.
Canada imports all these floors. All that waste will go to our landfills. So developing an alternative to be able to manufacture, add value to our local materials, right? And bring a product to market that can be circular is a big green, impactful project.
Traditionally, luxury vinyl plank is made from PVC, which contains vinyl chloride. And unfortunately, that's a challenging part to the circular story of flooring.
In our selection of materials for our final product, several polymers were considered. On the top, polypropylene appears as the best material that provide the properties that are required.
There has been some successful results with some of the properties that we've seen with the recycled content. And this is really encouraging going forward because it's a proof of concept in that these materials are something that can be produced.
Initially, we were looking at testing probably around the 10% of recycle, but we were very nicely surprised with the results that we have increased the amounts to 20%.
Obviously, we want to make sure that we have a consistent end product to our consumers, but fortunately, we can accept sort of a larger range of post-consumer waste, whether that's color variations or slight melt flow variations. We have the ability to control that a lot better, and it allows us to use a higher percentage than you might find in other sort of consumer or structural products.
For me personally, I really do love being involved in this type of project. It challenges me every day, and no day is the same. So when I get to come to work and do something different, it's amazing. But it's also more amazing when I get to come to work and also feel like I'm contributing to something that's going to make a difference at the end of the day.
We're really excited to be able to say that we're trying to make a Canadian-made product and really an Alberta-made product. Part of this whole business model is that our raw materials are right here in Alberta, leveraging the Heartland Petrochemical Complex. I think PRIA was a great project to be able to link the right people together, I guess, at the end of the day. And again, working closely with Nate, they had the fundamental sort of testing equipment to get us results that we needed to be able to evaluate whether something was beneficial or not. And that core data was allowed us to make those decisions, confidently.
This is a really challenging problem. It's not easy, or else everyone would be doing it already. But having a partner like PRIA who's willing to understand the challenges that are facing these companies and these projects and just sticking with it is critical.
What makes me most proud is, I think I go back to teamwork, being able to be part of a good team, right? That is really focused on the results and the outcomes that we want to achieve. The struggle sometimes on the innovation process, but at the end of the day, you have a goal, you accomplish it, and we are all excited and happy about it, and then look at the next steps.
And I'll just provide a few more details on the project for development of polypropylene flooring from recycled materials. The purpose of this project is to demonstrate the incorporation of post-consumer materials into polypropylene flooring applications in collaboration with Polyco. We looked at the evaluation of the mechanical and thermal properties of produced tiles without recycled content as a benchmark test, and with recycled content for the evaluation of the effect of the introduction of post-consumer materials. The project started in 2022 and is set to wrap up at the end of this year. So the project is in collaboration with Polyco, a Calgary-based company developing luxury, resilient, waterproof, and circular polyvinyl chloride-free flooring using polypropylene from the Heartland Chemical complex here in Alberta. Polyco's highly automated and zero waste manufacturing plant will be the first of its kind in Canada, and the product will be the first of its kind manufactured in North America. We worked with Polyco to test over 22 different formulations to date. Over 12 of these formulations contained recycled content. We tested the materials for mechanical properties and thermal properties. All of these properties are important for processing, but also for the end application in the flooring tiles that Polyco will be producing. The data that Nate was able to provide to Polyco was generated this year and provided Polyco with information regarding the amounts and types of PCR content and the impact that these materials had on the overall properties. The thermal and mechanical properties we see in the slide indicate that Polyco was able to tailor the performance of their materials based on the formulations that they were able to produce. So the data that Nate provided to Polyco was instrumental in refining their formulation and also validating Polyco's ability to introduce factory and consumer regrind and recycled content into their product. The one thing that this project really highlighted to me was that innovation is an iterative process. We were able to work very closely with Polyco to provide them data that they could use to refine their process and produce a viable product at the end of the day. And when Jeremiah said that it takes 30 years as opposed to 30 months, I guarantee you that sometimes it does feel like 30 years rather than 30 months. And this just goes to highlight that in applied research, flexibility, adaptability, and persistence are necessary for these kinds of projects. And it's been incredibly rewarding to see the progress that Polyco has made from the beginning of this project to where we are currently. So Polyco was able to refine their formulations and achieve key confidence milestones. They're currently finalizing capital equipment purchases and the next step, which is the next step towards their goal of commercialization and becoming a zero waste facility. Polyco's target date for commercialization is 2026, so you can look forward to seeing Polyco branded materials in your home soon. The next project that I have the pleasure of talking to you about is the development of post-consumer plastics for building material development. This project is in collaboration with Rewaste and Clark Builders, and the purpose is to identify an optimum composition of recycled plastic materials to use as sheets for the application of concrete formwork in the construction industry. This project originally started in the spring of 2022, the fall of 2022, and is set to wrap up in the spring of next year. This project was broken down into multiple phases to address the challenges of working with post-consumer materials. We really wanted to, in the first phase, understand the materials and the challenges that are faced with working with these materials. This included mix design by Rewaste and selecting the plastics and the sources that were going to be used in the prototype sheets, as well as material testing, and we have planned tests on a bench scale prior to field testing to really understand how these materials are going to perform in this application. Phase 2 is going to look at field testing in collaboration with Clark Builders at one of their sites. So the project is in collaboration with Rewaste and Clark Builders. Rewaste is an Edmonton-based company that sources post-consumer plastic material from their partner companies in the Edmonton municipal region. And Clark Builders is a general leading contracting and construction management company that services clients in Western Canada and Western and Northern Canada, and they have over 40 years of experience in the construction industry. So to date, we've worked with Rewaste to test 5 different plastic types collected and manufactured by Rewaste. We've looked at the chemical and thermal properties as well as the mechanical properties of these materials to gain the understanding of what's in these materials and also how they're going to potentially, how they're going to react in this application. We've also looked at environmental conditions to again assess any impact that they might face in the application for concrete formwork. So currently we've characterized some of the chemical and mechanical properties of the PCR materials. If we look at the figure on the left-hand side, we were able to identify common chemical composition and functional groups within the plastics and assess similarities and differences between the plastic types. In addition, we were also evaluated the impact properties of these materials. So in a construction setting, this might be a key performance indicator for these materials. We definitely saw different performance properties of these materials in impact testing, and this helped to inform, again, the selection of materials further on. We also looked at the exposure conditions. So we exposed these samples to a commercially available concrete mix as well as ultraviolet light to assess what potential impact these conditions would have on these materials. Unfortunately, we didn't see any statistical differences within the sample types. So the future work includes an exciting collaboration with the NAIT School of Skilled Trades and students who are currently enrolled in this program to test some of these materials in a real-world setting prior to the field tests that we have with Clark Builders. Additional materials testing will be evaluated following the small-scale application, and field testing will be completed in collaboration with Clark Builders. So thank you very much, and please join me in welcoming Dr. Paolo Musoni, the current chair of the Clean Technologies team.
Thank you, Kelsey. Let me see if I can manage to, there we go. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Ready for the news of the day? New project, very excited, very exciting. So we call it Designing for Circularity for short. It's a project that, in my mind, is a quintessential representation of industry-driven, industry-focused applied research here at NAIT, because the need for this project was brought forward by an industry partner, in this particular case, Heartland Polymers. So what are we doing with this? Through this project, we're going to create polymer blends that will comprise polypropylene produced at the Heartland Petrochemical Complex and post-consumer recycled content that will be supplied by industry partners that have been engaged and will continue to be engaged during the project. So these are commercial entities that are in the business of recycling and preparing post-consumer recycled content for utilization. So that's one of the objectives. The other objective, if we can switch back one moment, there you go, thank you, is to specifically study and understand the applicability of extrusion at first at the bench scale and then in a pilot setting with an eye to commercialization of extrusion as a way of creating these blends. So we're talking about mechanical recycling here for the nerds in the room like myself. And then we'll be investigating specifically the effects of the chemical, thermal, and physical properties of PCR on the final products. So these are the objectives that came out of conversations with Heartland and form really the, I would like to call it the foundations for creating the applied research project. So how does this translate into applied research questions? There are two, they're interrelated, and they drive the definition of the plan that I will show you in a moment. There's two fundamental questions that we're asking, one of which is, how do the properties of these materials affect the polymer blends? And how do these properties for the blends that we create, in fact, we'll create them here at NAIT in the lab, how do they scale when we go about doing extrusion at a larger scale in a pilot facility? I think it's important to show the PCR content, as we call it, that we've been able to secure in this picture. As mentioned, they were supplied by companies that are active in Alberta. And I owe a big thank you to Mike Che, who's sitting right over there, our business development lead, in securing those samples. It's important because without a supply of PCR, without a reliable supply of PCR, an industrial scale supply of PCR, there will not be really, at the end of the day, a commercially sustainable and stable product that will be produced. So kudos to Mike for finding that, finding those relationships and nurturing them. In terms of project execution, I try to keep this as simple as possible. I'll break it down in a few words. It's a project built in two phases. Phase one, which is ongoing, was started at the end of this fiscal year, so April of 2023. The first phase of the project involves creating the polymer blends. We do this at the bench scale, and we're going to use a microcompounder, which is a way of blending the virgin plastic with the PCR content, and then we'll be extruding small-scale samples that then we'll go about testing. And this is very significant for NAIT Applied Research because in all of the other projects that you've seen today, those samples have been produced by the partners that we work with. This project represents a step change, represents the ability for now NAIT to be able to create these prototype of products internally at a small scale. And it's important for us because it will help us as an organization drive this type of experimentation more rapidly and engage with students, have students involved in doing this type of work. Through the first phase of the project, we're going to create, as I said, a collection of polymer blends. In collaboration with Heartland Polymers, we'll determine which ones are the ones that are worthy of being scaled up, so tested in a larger setting. And during 2025, we'll work with a pilot scale industrial extrusion company. We haven't identified it yet, so that's also for Mike to figure out, to create those prototypes at a larger scale. And ultimately, what we're hoping to accomplish by the end of 2025 is enough information that Heartland will be able to use to pursue commercialization of these new blends. As they say, it takes a village to raise a child. It definitely takes more than a village to do applied research. So there's a team that's running all of this. I'm thankful and grateful to be part of this. You've seen this picture before because the same cast of characters that tends to do these kinds of projects. So Kelsey is involved. Dr. Mohammed Arshad, right, sitting at the back of over there, also involved. Emily, who's sitting right there in the corner, also involved in this project, and we're going to hire a student who will join the team in January of next year. We've already been working for a while on the project, a couple of thousand hours in total. Very proud to say 0 safety incidents in the lab. And I will close by saying that the careful observers will have seen that there's an additional logo on the template here. And that's the logo of Alberta Innovates, the major provincial funder here in Alberta. I owe a big thank you to them, and particularly to Mayor Niku, who's going to follow up and introduce the project from their perspective, because this is really a case of co-funding a major initiative. And I'm really, really proud of this. And as a scientist, I'm also very proud that we've been able to secure this funding for NAIT. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Mayor.
Even high heels doesn't help. Okay, thank you, Paula, and thank you to the NAIT team for giving me the opportunity to say a few words. The project that we support in collaboration with PRIA came to us last year around this time and checked so many boxes, but at the same time had to go through our 2-stage evaluation process or due diligence. So the funding was approved in March. It's been a few months, the project has been active. And based on my observation, I expect high success for this project. And I want to be clear what we call success, because I feel we talk a lot about what type of proposals we are looking for, what type of applications we support. But normally we don't talk about what expectation or what we call success after the funding is approved. So there are different elements. As Paolo mentioned, this project has a very clear objective. That's the first thing we always look for. We understand we are in the business of risk. It's research, things change, and we are flexible to those changes as long as there is a vision, there is a clear objective, clear vision for the project is what we are looking for. The second element is we always ask for an end user or a partner for commercialization of the product or the technology. In this case, Heartland Polymer has been involved, and for us is more than just a support letter as part of the application package. It's really important to see the engagement, the real involvement, and the way I've seen the Heartland Polymer staff being part of the meetings and providing direction for the research is something that for sure is very valuable to us. The other thing that we are looking for, another element, is about impacts, because we always ask about impacts, but usually impacts come from commercialization of the technologies. Alberta Innovates supports pilot bench scale TRL 3 to 7, so we don't expect to see a lot of impacts to be realized at the end of these projects. Maybe like student training is something that, yes, can be as part of the project, but like how much GHG reduction you're gonna have, what job creation or diversion of plastic waste going into landfill usually comes from commercialization of the project. But at the same time, we really like to see the project team is thinking about that. As they are working through the project, through the scale-up of their technologies, they have that vision and they track it. Like if you are making changes in the technology and for some reason heat and electricity consumption going up, GHG is going up, or is becoming too expensive, is not going to be viable. These kind of things we like to see is tracked during the project is another component that is part of this project. And the last one is the communication, being transparent with Alberta Innovates, and also the learnings that will be shared at this is too soon to judge, but we are really hoping to see enough learnings from any projects to be shared with the public. This is a public funding. We do respect the confidentiality for some of the aspects of the projects, but we are really hoping to see some of those learnings be shared. Even if it means like something that you have tried in the lab didn't work out, and you teach someone else not to do that, basically, not to repeat that. This kind of things, this kind of elements we like to see as part of the projects, and I'm really hopeful for this project and looking forward to more collaboration with the team and with the Heartland Polymer staff. So, thank you.
All right. Thank you to all the presenters. Thank you, Jeremiah, Toya, Kelsey, Paulo, and Mayor. You guys are the best. All right, so last but definitely not least, we will hear from Danielle Charwa. She's awesome. One of NAIT Clean Technology's beloved co-op student research assistants who had worked day in and day out when it came to the PREA microplastics monitoring project. When I first met Danielle, I remember asking her an obnoxious amount of questions. In fact, I was interrogating whether or not she was prepared both mentally and physically for the challenges we would face in the field. Rain or shine, hot or cold, we go out no matter what. I felt apprehensive. It's not easy work. It took an entire 5 minutes of me standing in the beating sun, sweating bullets, and contemplating my life decisions. When I stared over at her and she was cool, confident, smiled back at me with her bucket hat, long sleeve shirt, and an umbrella. She was 100% trying to make a point that this was her element and I was just living in it. So Danielle's experience, which you will all get to hear today, peels back the curtain on student opportunities within PREA to both develop and utilize skills, promoting the growth of our scientific future. Join me in offering a warm welcome to Danielle Charwa.
Thank you, Patrick, for the introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. Like Patrick said, I'm Danielle Charwa, and I'm the student research co-op for the Microplastic Monitoring Project this year. I have a bachelor's degree in biology from the University of Lethbridge, and I'm a current conservation biology student here at NAIT, set to graduate in the spring after my final semester.
I opted to pursue a co-op placement so that I could get hands-on industry experience before I graduate. I wanted to be on the microplastics team specifically because it offered the unique opportunity to gain experience in both lab and field work, all while staying around Edmonton so I could study the area I live in. Microplastic contamination in the environment is an emerging science, and this job was a great opportunity to be a part of that research and see the industry partnerships and collaboration that make it possible. I'm going to give you a little insight into my experience as a student on the team. The first thing that was immediately noticeable was the team's dedication to safety. This was a shift coming from a student lab where the lab techs and instructors take on the majority of the safety responsibilities. I've participated in regular safety meetings and lab inspections to make sure that everyone in the building can safely work around each other and that our safety equipment is ready to go should it ever be needed. I've also been given additional lab and field training to ensure that I'm safe no matter the work that I'm doing. Jeremiah has built a tight-knit team that I instantly felt a part of, and he's fostered a wonderful workplace environment, as evidenced by the number of students who come back to work full-time on the project. This has created a collaborative spirit that has allowed me to develop skills emphasizing communication and cooperation while aligning tasks with individual strengths. I've been given professional development opportunities to attend and present at conferences with industry professionals so that I could get my name out and make connections before I graduate. While many of our procedures and systems had been thoroughly tested before I joined the project, I have enjoyed the opportunity to work with the team on additional method development and troubleshooting to make the project even stronger. I've also had the chance to help develop side projects to round out our river characteristics knowledge base. The project has built upon my existing experience measuring water chemistry parameters and introduced me to new instruments and methods like ion chromatography. I've learned the microplastic sampling and extraction process, which, while a very specific skill set that I may not use in the future, has built my confidence in the lab, and I'll be able to take that anywhere. There's been a lot of hard work on the project this year, and while this has sometimes led to long, challenging days, I have good memories of all of them. Jeremiah mentioned this earlier, but I'm thinking back specifically to the major rainstorm we had in June. That week was very wet, cold, and slippery, working by the river, and at one point it was a challenge just to get ourselves and our gear out of the river valley. But we adapted, put our heads together, and came up with a plan to climb out and pass our gear up. Thinking back, this might actually be one of my favorite experiences from the field this year. Last, but certainly not least, I've gained a healthy, or maybe perhaps unhealthy level of paranoia of anything that contains plastic that might be used in the lab or field, because plastic leads to sample contamination. I'm sure I'm going to hesitate anytime I have to use a plastic pipette or sampling bottle for a while. While this co-op has largely been for me to gain experience, I've also been able to use my knowledge from my education to assist and improve the project. I've been able to make some equipment and safety training recommendations to ensure a better experience in the field, and I've streamlined the transfer of field logs and sample information from the field to the lab. Lastly, I was tasked with improving our river velocity methodology, which was something I actually excelled at in school, and I was able to quickly develop a procedure. Now, what does all of this mean for my future? Beyond the knowledge that I've developed in my education, I now have much more experience in freshwater sampling, which is something I enjoy. I also have more experience completing field safety assessments, working in and around moving water, and considering contamination when planning field work. Right out of graduation, a lot of the work that I'm looking at will be largely summer-based field work, and I believe that my experiences on the project will make me an asset to any field team. This co-op has also given me experience in the lab doing sample prep and analysis, as well as data management, which will help improve my ability to remain on projects through the winter months when fieldwork isn't possible. To conclude, I'm very thankful for the experiences I've gained through this co-op, and I'm very optimistic for what my future might hold, given everything I've been able to do on the project. I'd like to thank Jeremiah and the rest of the microplastics team for the guidance and expertise that they've been able to provide that have made this co-op such a wonderful success for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle, for sharing your passion and excitement with us. I could talk about that story, about the rainfall, every day of my life. Okay, at this point, we would like to acknowledge opportunities for potential future collaboration on applied research projects focused on the reuse and recycling of plastics. If you are sitting in the room today or attending virtually, and you or your organization is interested in collaborating for a plastic circular economy, please visit the website posted on the screen here, the Plastics Research in Action webpage for contact information regarding future opportunities. We look forward to having more news to share in the coming months, and you can follow our website and social media accounts to learn more. Now, I would like to invite our formal presenters, Jeremiah, Toya, Kelsey, and Paolo, to the stage for our Q&A portion of our presentation. We will now be opening the floor. Yes. We will now be opening up the floor for questions to those in the room and for those who are attending online. For those in person, feel free to welcome yourself up and line up in behind the microphone that you see in the center of the room to ask your questions. For our virtual audience online, please submit your questions to the Q&A box that you find on your screen. We will get to as many as possible in the allotted time. If we cannot get to all of them, we will be taking note of them and do our best to respond offline. For any media on the call or here today, we are pleased to take your questions now, but if you have more than one or two, we will be happy to connect with you after the call with either Heartland Polymers or NATE's media relations teams. I will be using my power as moderator to ask the first question to our panel. Jeremiah Brixa, you look too comfortable and you already have the microphone. You mentioned the Microplastics Project has over 7,500 hours of student involvement. How is this possible?
Well, we've had students involved since the start of the project. Patrick was the first student who worked with us. And since he started, we hired him on full-time. The second year, we had 2 students. We hired one of them on full-time. The other student went to industry. The third year, we had 5 students. 4 of them still work here. I would have hired the 5th, but she had to go back to graduate at U of A. And we've had co-ops, 2 co-ops, full-year students, and we'll have a 3rd co-op student. So it adds up, and it's been great to work with all the students. And yeah, they're all young, and it's good, keeps me on my toes.
Thanks, Jeremiah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
One of our students is sitting right at the back, Aldo, you might remember him, right? Aldo also stuck around in our team, but is doing completely different stuff. So a case of transferable skills that come in handy and useful also in other projects. I had to say hi to Aldo.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Jeremiah. Thank you, Paulo. One for Kelsey. What are the benefits of using plastic sheeting over plywood currently used for concrete framework?
Yeah, so we're hoping that with this project, we can divert plastic that would potentially end up in the landfill for a useful application. This will help offset not only plastics, but also plywood that could potentially be ending up in the landfill through this application as well. In addition, the intent would be to use the sheets multiple times, and then also, hopefully, the sheets that do reach the end of their lifespan could then be reprocessed into the same application.
All right, one for Toya. You did mention this already. You did mention some of the next steps that you expect for the 2024 year. But what are some of the key next steps, some things that really stand out to you, and what does the future hold for your project?
Thank you very much. So one thing about this project is we know that Heartland Polymer or IPL, they are not going into, asphalt laying. So, and that was why it was key for us to ensure that we engage the right partners. So Sturgeon County, Strathcona County, as well as McAshford, they were involved, and Green Mantra. So the expectation from this is we're gathering, we've had discussion, the result looks so good, but yet we still want to wait one more year to be able to make, concrete conclusion from this. Then the plan is we expect them to work collaboratively together. Then we want to see very soon, en masse, asphalt being added to, plastic being added to asphalt here in Alberta. And we believe that the partners can work collaboratively together to get this done.
Thank you, Toya. One more for Jeremiah. So you touched on the Yukon government and working with the Yukon government through the Microplastics Project, and we get to hang out with them actually down by the river on that rainy and stormy day, bringing it back up again, by the way. How was that experience like, and what kind of other partners are actually reaching out to be able to collaborate on this Microplastics Project?
Yeah, it was great to work with the Yukon government. We connected with them about a year ago through Palo. They were stuck on the sampling part of the microplastic work. They wanted to study the Yukon River and to see if their urban cities had impact on the river. So they connected with us, and we decided to help them out. We invited them over, and they basically shadowed us as we worked on the river. It was pretty cool being able to teach them all the things that we knew. And the people that come down, they're basically like the Canadian Bear Grylls working out in the Yukon. They knew a lot of cool things about field work, so we got to learn from them as well. Yeah, we had a lot of good memories, and we're still working on future collaboration with them. We're hoping to be able to go down to the river, the Yukon River, actually with them and do a project kind of similar to what we're doing in the North Saskatchewan River, but on a smaller scale. So we're just working on some funding options for that.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Yeah, by all means.
Is this on?
I hope so.
Okay.
I hear you loud and clear.
I don't usually have to use the microphone to be heard, but it's for the online folks, I know. Toya, what I know is that Alberta has an awful lot of pavement, a lot of paved roads, and I come from Saskatchewan where we really don't. So there's a lot of pavement, and we know there's a lot of plastic waste. And what I think is really smart about how you designed this program from the beginning is that we involved Alberta Transport, and you involved real pavers and things like that. So I know that the idea is to commercialize this eventually after the data. Have you had any conversations with companies that would like to take this data now and commercialize it?
Thank you very much, Lauren, for that. So we've been having conversation with Alberta Transportation. They're looking forward to the final conclusion from the project. I know a couple of counties and companies have reached out to Alberta Transportation, and then they've referred them to me. We've been having conversation as well. I think everybody is just kind of waiting on that next year to be able to take it from this. And maybe just to quickly add to this, based on what Lauren said, one of the key things about this project is the ability to take a lot of plastics away from the landfill. Because if you look at it, we're able to lay down about 3.74 tons of post-consumer plastic waste over the 4 sites, and that's equivalent to 710 plastic bags or 410,000 plastic bottles. So that's huge. Over the short of those period, over that short period, kilometers of road that we laid. So we believe that if we're able to do this, looking at the amount of plastics, asphalt that we are laying every year, we'll be able to take a lot of plastics away from the landfill.
That is a lot of plastic. Thank you, Toya. One for Kelsey. What's the testing process been like for the flooring project? Are certain polymers tested versus others for performance? Yeah, no, of course. What's the testing process been like for the flooring project? How was the experience of that? And are certain polymers, in particular between the polypropylene and the copolymers, tested versus others, so maybe outside of the realm of polypropylene, polyethylene, for performance?
So for the flooring project in particular, only polypropylene was tested from Nate's perspective. I'm not sure if Polyco looked at identifying other polymers before choosing polypropylene, but from our perspective, we've only tested the polypropylene. And in terms of incorporation of the PCR content, Polyco, did look at different types of PCR content. So we were able to test that for them and then also evaluate the differences that the different types of polymers incorporated into those materials provided for the performance properties and the impact that that had on performance properties. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, yes, of course. Thank you. One for Jeremiah and Paulo. Has the volume of microplastics in the river changed over the testing process, so over the course of when we started the project versus now?
That's a good question. So we haven't processed all of our samples yet. We have a backlog. It took us a lot of the earlier years to do method development and make sure that our process worked, and we knew that the plastics that we reported were from the river and not from ourselves, contamination. So we have a backlog that we're working through right now. They seem to be in a range from the results that we've seen so far, and that range is pretty much in line with the other results that we've seen from freshwater rivers in Alberta and Saskatchewan, and then in the same range as other results in the literature as well.
Yeah, maybe the only other thing I'd add is that the project was articulated as a multi-year project to really understand that variability, alongside with collecting microplastics and of course doing a lot of freshwater analysis with all the parameters that we're studying. We're also drawing data from weather patterns as an example. We're using data from the Alberta government when it comes to river flow and parameters as such. So the idea here is at the end of the project, create a multivariate type of analysis, statistical analysis, so that we can understand hopefully what patterns are there.
Yeah. And it's been interesting so far.
Hi, sorry, I snuck up here for a question. This is Jennifer Lee from Interpipeline. I'm really excited about the new Design for Circularity project, and as someone who's never worked in a lab, I was just wondering what kind of things could go right or wrong that might delay or accelerate a project timeline?
Maybe I'll pass the question on to some. So, how many things can go wrong? We only have a few minutes, so I don't think I can satisfy a question. The jokes aside, under the spectrum of what can go wrong, it can be anything from the equipment stops working for whatever reason, and then suddenly you're a few weeks behind because you're waiting for a replacement part, down to somebody decides to move on to a different job, in which case maybe the project is delayed by a few weeks or a few months. On what can go right, on the other hand, that happens, but you eventually get there. You get to the end point by, I think it's Kelsey that used the word persistence. Yes, by persisting, by sticking to the goal, by operating as a team, by being humble in acknowledging when things don't work, which is very often, by being transparent with your industry partner when things don't go right, which is very often, by being transparent with the funders, with the provincial funders when that does happen. So it requires an act of humility almost every day, because that's the reality of applied research. You walk into the lab and, okay, what's actually going to be a challenge today that I didn't think about? And I know it sounds like almost beating your head against the wall voluntarily, but I can tell you it's fun, actually. It requires a bit of a special mindset.
Yeah, I live that every day. All right, Toya, how do you test the consistency of your asphalt?
Okay, so like I said, one of the reasons why we decided to work with WSP is because they've been in this field for a very long period of time. They have some set of equipment that is of interest to Alberta Transportation in terms of testing, evaluating the laid asphalt. So one of the reasons why we decided not to do it on our own alone and to work collaboratively with them is that they have the experience. So we're able to identify from onset the set of tests that needs to be done. So falling weight deflectometer is one of them. IRR is something that we want to do early, but the advisor said it's better you do it, your last year, because by then there's a law of 2 years, so you have 8 seasons that has gone, 4 in a year. So things have settled down. By then you start seeing the true nature of the asphalt. So that's why we're doing that next year. and we do series of some visual assessment as well. So we've done what the industry standard, will expect, and that's why we work with WXP on that.
Perfect. Thank you, Toya. One for Kelsey. What does a successful project look like, and what does that mean to you?
Great question. For me, a successful project is really one where we are able to provide a lot of value to our partners, whether that's in the form of data, technical expertise, being able to provide them with tangible results that they can then use to inform their process. I think it's really key, and I think that's a strength that Nate and the applied research team really bring to projects and partnerships like this.
Perfect. Thank you, Kelsey. One more for Jeremiah. How does this year differ from, say, last year?
Sure, so this is our 4th year of the project, and this year was different because I think I had a pretty all-star team this year. I had Patrick, who was the original summer student, Nadia, who was our second summer student. They're on my team as senior technicians, so they're quite skilled in everything. We had Aldo back this summer and Katrina, who are back for a 2nd year again. So we just had really one new student to onboard, so I think we were pretty efficient in onboarding. So this year we were out on the river, I think 5 weeks earlier than we've ever been, so we got to sample the very early spring. So we got different samples like that, and we had a pretty strong, capable team in the lab. So I think we processed tons of samples, and we got to do additional kind of experiments to understand the relationship with suspended solids with microplastics. So I think we had a pretty highly structured year compared to our earlier years when we were doing a lot of R&D and figuring things out kind of as we went along. This year was really all about execution, and I think next year is all about finishing strong. The last year of the project, we have a pretty good team. Patrick and Nadia as well, and Katrina are going to be full-time technicians on the team with myself and our new student, so I think we're going to be able to finish the year pretty strong. That's my goal anyways.
Perfect. All right, one for Paulo. A bit of an emotional question. How does your passion lie in the new project? What are your excitements? What are the things that drive you as this project starts to get initiated and as we move forward into to the beginning of it?
So there's many things that I like about my job, but I think seeing the students, seeing people like yourself, Patrick, seeing all the students that have been part of this program, and not just the microplastics project, just any of the projects. You used the word talent incubator. Jeremiah used that for Patrick, for Priya. That's what it really is to me, and that's the part that I really like the most about it. It's about elevating the talent that's here at NAIT, and in fact beyond, because Nadia joined us from MacEwan. She was the first person to come to work on this project from outside of NAIT. We also had students from U of A that have been part of this project. So it's about also inclusivity and elevating everyone's skills and game. Mm-hmm. We're a school after all.
Yeah, exactly. One for Toya. What are the key learnings to date? I know that you touched on some already, but what are the main things that really stand out to you, and how do they apply to your future applications and making this a widespread application for asphalt?
So key learning for this actually aligns with why I kind of like the NAIT model. So NAIT model mostly, I've worked in the university for several years, but compared to what I've done at NAIT, it's more of involvement of key partners, in ensuring that the research that you're doing is not just a shelf research, but is kind of, the applied research content. So the key learnings from this asphalt project has been the ability to be able to work with the right partners. So if you look at it, we have a lot of plastic waste in our counties, so we need Strathcona and Sturgeon coming in that place to fill that bucket. We have, when we started, we have issues in terms of the plastics, because we're doing research around the issue of microplastics. We have concerns in terms of, we don't just want to pelletize the plastics and dump it into hot mix asphalt. So we're able to, from our research, we're able to work with a company, Green Mantra, And what Green Mantra does is to change the chemistry of the plastics into a property that is very close, to what's currently being used commercially, to blend with asphalt. Then we have other partners, McAshford, we have the Alexandra First Nation. So we kind of have the right partners in the mix. And that's a key learning for me that, when you have the right partners, you'll be able to achieve much in any project. And I see, that being replicated in every other project that we're doing at Prayer to ensure that we are involving the right partners in this. And that's a key learning, not only for the actual project, but even as the senior project manager for Prayer, to ensure that all our projects, we have people, that are the right people on the table discussing, giving us their perspective, on each of the projects.
Yeah, collaboration is the theme after all.
Yeah, sure.
Right. One more for Jeremiah. Oh, sorry. In-house.
Yeah, I have a question for Jeremiah. So, few technical questions basically. So you reported the data in 1,500 liters per, like the number of particles you found. Is this extrapolated data or just you got the data from?
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of results in literature are extrapolated. Like if you sample 500 liters, people would multiply it by 2 to get particle count per 1,000 liters or meter cubed. Ours are the absolute results because we sample such high volumes, 1,500 liters, it's the particle count. So we're able to extract all of the particles, and the analysts at Dow can analyze the total microplastics and they can identify the different types of microplastics. So it's not extrapolated. It's
Must be like a lot of work. I mean, to remove you must have removed the organic content first, right?
Yeah.
So to treat 1,500 liters of materials, whatever oxidizer you used, must be a lot of materials and the labor involved.
Yeah, we spent. Sure, so it was a technical question, understanding how to remove the organic material because it's a freshwater river. There's lots of organic material in there and as well inorganics. So we spent the first 2 years of the project trying to figure out exactly how to do that. That's why it took us 30 months to figure out how to actually get results. So we wanted to make sure the results that came out of this project were robust. So we spent a lot of time on the back end figuring out what best methods to do. So we worked in collaboration with the analysts at Dow Canada to give us some guidance as well. We have lots of experience working in literature searching. So we tried a lot of different things and we figured out the optimal, what we think is the optimal process. So if you want to connect later, we can definitely talk about that. But
just out of curiosity, like, do you like only use microscopy technique for the quantification or other techniques like?
Yep. So what technique do we use to measure? So we use the laser, the chemical imaging system, the LDIR. It's Agilent 8700. It's basically a microscope combined with a laser that allows you to look at each particle individually and get a chemical signature for it. And after that, you can library match it to understand what polymer it is. So we use the particle counting technique. There's other techniques out there by mass with GC pyrolysis, so you might be familiar with that. We use that kind of secondarily, but our main methodology is particle counting using microscopy and IR spectroscopy or laser.
Last question, is this just water sample or the sediments also?
Sure, so we originally wanted to do sediment as well, but we ran into a lot of challenges with the sediments, particularly there's a lot of coal in the river, so the coal actually behaves very similar to microplastics. So we had a lot of challenges separating the two out, and if you're familiar with IR spectroscopy, analyzing a black particle it's not good. So our final product was just all black particles, so we had a lot of challenges with the sediment. We never made it far with that. We have some ideas, but that could be another project, yeah.
Yeah, thanks for the time.
Thank you. This will be a question for the entirety of the panel here because this is important to Yes, we'll start with Kelsey, we'll move down the line. For students watching, how does one join or get involved with PRIA?
Great question. So the teams hire summer students. So if you're interested, I would recommend looking out for those postings, as well as co-op students. Also, just reach out to us and tell us that you're interested. We're more than happy to just meet with you, talk about the projects. Yeah, just, I guess, reach out, look for postings, and yeah.
I don't know if there's 4 different answers.
If there's any more to that, you can add. I know that we also have the co-op opportunities, and I know that from speaking for myself, passion is key.
Yeah, I just want to add that students is a key piece of the partnership. So we measure that, and it's been great, seeing about 11,000 hours of students on, on all the projects. So just keep looking, reach out to any of the team, or go on our website, it's on the screen. Just reach out that you want to know more and you want to, be notified if there's any position open. We'll surely reach out to you when that time comes.
My advice would be don't be shy. Engage with the team, engage with your instructors. We're very connected on the academic side as well. Many instructors know of the work that we do. So if you don't feel like, or you don't are comfortable enough with coming and talking to us directly, talk to your instructor and just ask.
Perfect. All right, so we got time for one more question. I got to load it up here. This will be for Jeremiah. Looking at the data, as you posted up front, Hawrelak Park seemed to consistently have the most microplastics. Why could that be?
You got to stay tuned for that one. We have some ideas that we're going to be going back next summer to do a couple testing, a couple samples specifically for that. I would say it has one of the higher microplastic concentrations at that location. We have a hypothesis, but we'll wait to get some more data on that, so stay tuned for that question.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, everyone. This concludes our Q&A portion of our panel. And if we did not get to your question today, feel free to reach out to us. Yet again, Nate Priya, we have some contact information there, and reach out through that. So I want to give a massive thank you to our presenters. Thank you for your updates, your words, and thank you for everyone who joined us today, both in person and online. This concludes the formal presentation piece of today's event. For those of you who are here in person, we'll give you 10-15 minutes of a break before we kick off some exciting NATE demonstrations on the second and third floor. Depending on how many people we got, we might split off into 2 groups, but that'll be to be determined. For those of you who happen to join us online, thank you so much for your time and tuning in. We hope you had a great time learning and exploring this past year of applied research in plastic circularity. Thank you all, and we hope to see you all again next year.